Last week, we saw the suppression and the sort of announcement that the Epstein files have no there, and this administration isn't going to release them because there's really just nothing you'd be interested in these files. Can you speak both to that and also what it's doing with politically, which is really your world, politically to this administration and to this movement of MAGA?
Well, Mark, I thought you made some important points in the lead in here that I caught. And, certainly let's start with sort of fact based and let's talk about politics. Fact based, as far as we know, and this is part of the challenge of this entire issue. There's supposedly thousands of pages in these files, right? In the bowels of the DOJ. No administration, no personality, no party seems to be able to get access to these. That is exceptionally odd in a Washington that these days leaks like a sieve, right? I mean, so you made an important point. From everything we do know, or at least is inferred, or at least people that think they know, or kind of know, or know somebody that knows, this is not a uniparty issue. You know what I mean? In other words, it isn't just one party's problem or another. It isn't one person or another. I mean, supposedly there could be as many as dozens or hundreds of names associated with this guy Epstein. Is there a definitive unilateral one-page list? Maybe not. But is there information on individuals? Oh, I think everybody now believes, yes, that is true. So secondly, the political part of it. It is a huge problem, as you rightly point out, Mark. I mean, the Trump team, and even admittedly by people on the other side of the aisle, has had win after win after win. What do I mean by that? The Iran bombing situation. Did it go exactly as they wanted to destroy everything? Maybe not. But it was praised even in European capitals and around the world, right? Not to mention in Congress. And then you've got things like the big, beautiful bill. People may hate it, but it got passed. That was a Herculean legislative effort. You could go down a long list of things. In fact, Smirkanish, remember we talked about this, did that on CNN, all the wins. This right here is a huge, gigantic pothole, most importantly, for his own base.
So when you see it playing out in his administration with people like Bongino threatening resignation, with a shouting match supposedly between Bondi and Patel, or Bondi and Bongino, but I mean, and Patel in the middle of all of this too, the FBI head, because clearly the FBI head, I mean, he was saying before he became FBI head, hey, it's all right there at the FBI. Yep, it's all right there. And damn it, we got to release it. It's all right there at the FBI. Hey, dude, you run the FBI now. Let's release it. So as far as the administration's concerned, it seems to kind of be coming apart at the seams, and Trump's normal ability to steal the headline with something else like tariffs, which we can get to, and international policy, even the Iran thing. I mean, it's like a wag the dog kind of moment. It seems to be blunted by how big a story this is. What happened to Gary? I just lost him. I can't hear him. Is that me?
Is the you got me, Mark?
No, go ahead. Please start again. Yeah.
Okay. It's because, as you rightly pointed out, Mark, this was such a MAGA central plank, right, of the MAGA base story in 24. I mean, just beat that drum to death. And now it just disappears. Here's the problem that Trump has: chain of command, right? It's Bondi. She is over a lot of entities, including the FBI. That means Patel, and of course his deputy, Bongino. So it's been interesting to me because I was waiting to see, okay, where does Trump cast his lot? Where does he draw the line in the sand? From all indications now, it looks like that's with Pam Bondi. I mean, he has personally defended her in a variety of contexts, including on his own True Social platform. He has not done that with Bongino. So if there's going to be anybody that walks out the back door at this juncture, I do not expect it to be Pam Bondi. Let me give one caveat to all that. People like Laura Loomer, right? If people know this name, she's a big, big Trump supporter, been a big social media influencer type. She's calling now for a special counsel to investigate the lack of release of these files. Now, that would throw a whole new level of problems in the mix for the president, right? Because now we'd have a special counsel investigating in part his own people, including his own FBI director and AG.
That will never happen. But that was wild to hear Loomer make that call. You know, Tony, we should put up in the live chat a poll. Who will be first to resign? Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, or Dan Bongino? Meantime, I wonder if you can run. Then I'm going to move off of the Epstein thing. But as we've said, it's Titanic. It's huge. I want to play for Gary that Michael Wolff thing that I see in the gate. Go ahead and run it, if you would. But Michael Wolff, who's written, as you know, he's the journalist, author, kind of the Trump whisperer a little bit, was inside the Oval for a lot of stuff and has also spent a lot of time with Epstein. That's why he's particularly relevant on this. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And so just the background, in 2014, Epstein asked me to write a book about him, or to consider writing a book about him. And at that time I said, nah, I'm not sure I want to do that. He said, don't worry about it. But you can come to my house whenever you want. There are a lot of interesting people here. I sort of conduct discussions that run through the day. I will, and I'll let you know when there's interesting people here who you might be interested in hearing or meeting.
So the relationship between Epstein and a lot of people doesn't always involve these massages and this other stuff. I think that's one of the issues. Go ahead a little bit more with Michael Wolff, if you would.
And it was interesting. It was kind of extraordinary window into power and influence, and into who this strange person Jeffrey Epstein was. And then when Donald Trump started to run for president, and I got on the Trump beat, and then Epstein became a very valuable source for understanding Trump. And so I know a considerable amount. I mean, Epstein and I spent a long time talking about Trump, about his relationship to Trump, about what transpired when they first met in late 80s, and then the end of their relationship over a real estate deal in 2004. But during this period, when this was, I think, after he was elected president, although it may have been slightly, yes, I would say it was after. I'm not sure he was in the White House yet. Epstein, and Epstein was Epstein, I mean, one of his character notes is that he took little seriously. Everything was amusing to Epstein. And so once we were there at his dining room table, and he brought out these snapshots, maybe a dozen of them, mm-hmm. and they were of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump with a variety of the girls who frequented Epstein's house in Palm Beach. And there are three that I specifically remember: two of topless girls sitting on Trump's lap, one with a stain on the front of his pants, and the girls, and three or four girls, five girls, pointing at this and laughing. And I assume Epstein kept those photographs in his safe, the same safe that was raided by and emptied by the FBI after Epstein's arrests in July.
Okay, perfect. That's all I wanted you to hear, that there's stuff like that potentially. Now, by the way, Gary Dietrich, I don't know that that's true. All right. I mean, I don't, just because Michael Wolff says it, he has a lot of specificity and it feels true, but by the same token, we don't know that it's true. But there probably is a lot of stuff on Trump, just because, as I was saying, the proximity Trump had to Epstein was so close for so long, decades they hung out together. I wonder, so as we wrap up our little Epstein back and forth and the damage done, it does appear to me anyway, and I think to most people looking in, as though those files will be damaging to Trump just because of that proximity. He doesn't want the Trump-Epstein relationship, even if it was fairly innocent. I mean, just assuming that he didn't do anything but hang out like a rich playboy, which is what they both were. He just doesn't want it out there. It gets in the way of the image he's trying to craft.
Well, Mark, going back to our original point on this at the beginning, by all estimations, there are maybe lots and lots of those quote unquote dossiers on individuals, right? From both sides of the aisle. I mean, Bill Clinton's name, of course, has been attached to this for a long time. There's been a whole host of people who flew on Epstein's jet. Did that have any cachet or not? Is that so? I don't want to get into all the specifics about an individual, Trump or anybody else, because frankly, I don't know.
Sure.
And I appreciate your saying, Mark. The problem is we don't know, right? And the question is going to be, do the documents get released? That's really the rub of this whole thing from a procedural point of view. Is there some mechanism by which somebody sues or something happens to force the release of these documents? That's probably right now where we are. On the political side of it, it's a very simple political calculation. Nobody of any stature, in politics wants their agenda sidetracked by a, potentially personally damaged or at least a distracting story, which these typically are. Talk to Bill Clinton about Monica Lewinsky if you want to talk about the ultimate POTUS distraction that really got his own people got them off track for a year or more in terms of their policies.
Such a great example, The poll is up in the live chat. Who will be first to resign? Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino. So right now, Bongino, of course, is the odds-on favorite. 79% of those who have weighed in. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can weigh in on the chat. I want to move on to the tariffs that I think are a pretty big deal. The idea somehow that the tariffs would be announced, then there's a 90-day pause. Then there is this question about what underpins the tariffs. I want to play you a little bit of from the Sunday show as Trump's people come forward to try to sort of explain the tariffs and the president's plan and get your reaction. Go ahead, Tony, please.
Let me ask you about one new set of tariffs that he announced on Brazil. 50% new tariff on Brazil. Brazil had a $6.8 billion surplus last year. In fact, the U.S. hasn't had a trade deficit with Brazil since 2007. I mean, almost 2 decades. So why are we putting a punishing 50% tariff on Brazil?
Well, bottom line is the president has been very frustrated with negotiations with Brazil and also with the actions of Brazil. In the end, though, we're trying to put America first. I think that a lot of people, when I'm talking to negotiators from other countries, at some point they'll say, what did we do wrong? And what I'm trying to get, the message we're all trying to get across is this is about America getting itself ready for the golden age by getting our house in order, by getting our tariff and trade policy and tax policy exactly where it needs to be for a golden age. And normally it's not necessarily about a specific country, but with Brazil it is. Their actions have shocked the president at times, and he's been clear about that.
But I don't understand how you're saying it's about America, because the president has made it quite clear that what he's upset about is how the Brazilian Supreme Court has handled the criminal case involving former President Bolsonaro.
Yeah, I mean, I like the follow-up. And by the way, I'll give you his answer. This is Kevin Hassett, who is he's an economist. He's the National Economic Council head, I think. Go ahead. Play the response, if you would, please. And
I agree with you. What I'm saying is that what I've been saying with most countries was that it's really about us getting the tariffs in order. And I think that this tariff for Brazil is a lot higher because of the president's frustration with Bolsonaro. And the fact that Bolsonaro himself, anyway.
But can you explain to me, because I find it confusing here, on what authority does the president have to impose tariffs on a country because he doesn't like what that country's judicial system is handling a specific case?
Well,
I mean, how is that?
If he thinks it's a national defense emergency, or if he thinks it's a national security threat, then he has the authority under IEPA.
So how is it a national security threat that, how Brazil is handling a criminal case against its former president?
Well, that's not the only thing. I mean,
so what is it? I mean, I've asked what it is. I mean, it seems that that's what President Trump's talking about. He's talking about his anger and his frustration. He's been quite candid about it with the Bolsonaro case.
Right. Well, the bottom line is that what we're doing absolutely collectively across every country is we're onshoring production in the U.S. to reduce the national emergency that is that we have a massive trade deficit that's putting it at risk should we need production in the U.S. because of a national security crisis. And this is part of an overall strategy to do that.
But again, as we've just established, we have a trade surplus with Brazil, not a deficit. And we've had a surplus with Brazil for 18 years.
If you look at an overall strategy, if you don't have an overall strategy for this, then there'll be transshipping and everything else, and you won't achieve your objectives.
Okay, I'm still confused, but let me move on.
So that was it. You see the two-step here is pretty tough because we know that these tariffs are arbitrarily imposed. Can you speak to two things, the economic effects and then the political realities on this?
Well, the economic effects, of course, are being debated every Sunday on these shows, Mark, right? And by every economist, not only in the U.S., but globally. I mean, you know, this for the average person, I think gets somewhat frustrating. Why? Because they were told back in the early part of this year, man, these tariffs, hey, it's just gonna, I mean, inflation's going to go through the roof and your 401k is going to go to the tank. And you know what, Mark? I have a lot of sympathy for people, just the average person, trying to manage their 401k. I mean, how about the rush to go out and buy automobiles by families because they were told, oh, they're going to be unaffordable by the end of the year. I mean, you see where I'm going with this? If you get to the street level practical realities of all this gamesmanship going on in the media and in Washington, I have a lot of concerns about, you know, average families just trying to make decisions for themselves and their families. Now, in terms of the politics of this, Trump now and today more than ever has made clear. Why today? Because today was his announcement that if he says now, well, in about 50 days, if Moscow doesn't agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine, we're not only going to slap them with 100% tariffs, we are going to slap 100% tariffs on anybody that trades with Russia. Okay, that's big allies of ours, like India, who imports a huge portion of Russian oil. So my point is, and does that have any direct economic impact on U.S.? No. Trump, in that instance, is using tariffs to leverage Russia to get into a ceasefire with Ukraine. So what is my point? Trump's made clear now, Mark, that tariffs, in his view, are not just going to be, and despite what his representative said, for the golden age of the U.S., they have a multifaceted potential usefulness.
Yeah, so you're saying it's not just about onshoring jobs and building factories here.
Right.
This is about leverage internationally.
Yeah, that's why his rep had so much difficulty defending the Brazilian tariffs, right? But I'm saying Brazil is just one example that's come out in the last week. Is people going, what's gives with Brazil? Why is he all over Brazil? And you're right, it's the politics. And he apparently, like the former president, hates Bolsonaro, thinks the former president would be better for U.S. interests longer term, whatever. But the point of the matter is, this where they're getting stuck in the mud in the Trump administration is, are tariffs just an economic tool, or are they also a political leverage point? It's looking increasingly like it's both and.
Now to immigration quickly in my last minute with you. The latest judicial ruling has enjoined the administration from a lot of these raids that they're doing now that seem to be associated with, you know, ethnicity and people's look. I mean, I mention these things because they're mentioned in the judicial order. The language they speak is mentioned in the judicial order as well. In other words, a lot of these things that I feel it kind of underpinned all of this. We know what they were doing and we know why they were doing it. But I mentioned at the top of the show, you know, a guy died in that Camarillo raid. I mean, some guy had been working there for 20 years. I mean, he's not, you know, he's sending money back to his family in Mexico, and he's just working for all this time, sending money home. The whole thing is a mess. Even Americans, Gary, are retreating on the notion of these sorts of raids going on the level that they are going on. So now you have the judicial judgment, you have the polling that shows that. Is there any chance that they'll back away? It doesn't seem like, based on their budget, they're supercharging ICE based on the amount of money they've dedicated to it in the latest budget.
Yeah, well, I think you're onto a really, really important distinction that is growing. And that is between, remember, wave number one was supposed to be criminals, right? people that were suspected of being part of, international crime syndicates or gangs, etc. All the quote unquote, just to lump, for lack of a better term, people use the term the bad guys, right? I mean, the people that are true, actual threats to Americans' lives, safety, prosperity, etc. Now, when we're moving more into these broader raids that you're referencing, Mark, I think you're going to see, and we already are, erosion in the polls in support for that. The question is, and even some Republican members of Congress are saying, well, going after criminals, that's exactly where we need to keep our focus. I think there's going to be growing pressure on Tom Homan and ICE and on the president and his administration. Look, keep the main thing right now. You can't have rounded up all the quote unquote bad guys that you claim are out there. Let's stay focused on that, because I think there are some significant potential political minefields out there to just, across the board, not random, but strategic sort of massive SWAT operations in factories, in parks, whatever. I mean, that's going to be the challenge. Is do people feel safer because of that, or they're saying, this seems like a bridge too far?
Love talking to you. Thank you for taking on all of these things. Life is complicated, political life even a bit more complicated, and American political life is super complicated. So there are a lot of different interests that compete here, and that also, I think, are cloudy. There's a big gray area here. There's nuance, I guess might be the word I'd use, and I appreciate you helping us get through it. Gary, thank you. We'll look for you on iHeart Radio and across the CBS television stations. Appreciate you being here, pal.
Hey, Mark, let me just tell you, I really commend you for digging into these things in the depth you do, and to your listeners and viewers for doing so as well. These aren't easy to sort out. There's a lot of issues, and, you're doing a great job.
Thank you so much for that. Appreciate you. You're part of it. Thanks, Gary Dietrich. See you, Gary. And Gary comes to us through Bill Campbell, Remax Gold. He makes Gary possible on this show. If you're relocating into or from Northern California, you want a highly respected real estate professional, Bill Campbell is that guy. Remax Gold is where Bill is. You can text him or call him, 530-448-7474. 530-448-7474. Bill Campbell, Remax Gold. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.